vacation land to taxation land.
Join me today in a discussion with Representative Jim White. Representative White and I will discuss everything from the Maine budget, to taxpayer-funded abortion, to how the left plans to abuse the Maine citizens. We all have heard of typical political jargon, and this is nothing different. The left put together an over 400-page budget, gave the legislators just 48 hours to read it. Turns out there are hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs that have never been filled, never planned to be filled, and they added more this time around. Just so that the left, when they have a new political project to push forward, they can reallocate the funds from those jobs to fit their narrative. Republicans plead to get rid of taxpayer-funded abortion, and there were almost no Democrats that joined them. The Republicans promised a bipartisan bill as long as they would get taxpayer-funded abortion removed from this budget, and only one Democrat budged. Welcome back to the bridge. So, as many of you know, Laurel Libby, a fantastic representative here in the state of Maine, introduced legislation recently to rename our state TAXATIONLANd. As in many of the Facebook Lives and YouTube videos I've done recently, I agree with her. We have a state where we're taxing our citizens to death, and we will no longer be the vacation land when we've taxed all our citizens out of the state and raised our prices so high that people no longer want a vacation here. So until we bring the budget back in line and lower our taxes, quite honestly, we should be called taxation land. To further develop on some of the budget votes and situations we're in financially, I have Representative James White here from the Guilford area. And Representative White, you were there a couple days ago when they were voting on the budget. What did you observe?
Well, I'll back up just a little bit. Tuesday, we were in session, and we were informed on Tuesday that the budget negotiations had came to a screeching halt. So from December 7th until a week ago, Thursday, I guess, the people on the Appropriations Committee were working very diligently, and truly on both sides of the aisle. A lot of the Democrats were working hard as well. The disappointing part I'll get to later, but they really put a lot of effort in. I mean, some weeks they were down there, in excess of 60 hours. These guys are really pouring themselves into this.
Yeah.
So, trying to make every concession that they could make and make some kind of sense out of the whole process. Unfortunately, I'm not on the Appropriations Committee, and I may not have, the numbers down 100% here, but there is a statutory limit to how much taxes can raise. Basically, you've got to stay pretty consistent with how much the salaries in the state have went up.
Yeah.
They blew that right off. So as of a week ago Thursday, they came in and said, end of negotiations, we're all done. And they presented the Appropriations Committee with this document, 419 pages.
How long did that do it? What was the time frame?
Well, they came in then. I was presented with it Tuesday. Of course, we had session. I had committee after session. At the end of my day, I had my aide print off 419 pages. So I could go home and look at it as much as I could, because they told us Thursday we're going to vote on it. So in this, there is money for all kinds of things that's overtly there. We know that there's not only housing for illegal immigrants, but there's medical insurance for illegal immigrants. There's a
Jeez.
whole lot of demographics in Maine citizens that don't have medical insurance, by the way. But if you just skip the border, come into the country, it will give you medical insurance. I don't know about you, but I believe that will probably create a rise in illegal immigrants coming to Maine.
There's no problem.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Along with that, there's housing. Some of the other things that are overtly in there. One thing, fertility treatments. So anyone on Maine Care, we now pay for fertility treatments, including the illegal immigrants. So, you know, if you live in Mexico and can't get pregnant and can't afford to see a doctor about it, you just skip over the border and come up to Maine. We'll put you up in a house and you can get free medical. We'll even give you, you know, a very expensive fertility treatments.
Jeez.
Now, along with that, because hey, why stay there? We also fund taxpayer abortions. So, you know, there's both ends of the spectrum here. Equal opportunity spending, I guess. But for what? You know, those are the overt things. But poured into this is hundreds and hundreds of jobs in departments that have jobs that have never been filled. So there are close to 1,000 jobs in the state that are on the books that get funded, salaries get funded every year. And they get funded at, you know, what the cost of an employee is. So their pay plus enough money for their insurance and all the other expenses. But those departments never fill the seat. So that money just gets reallocated to whatever pet project the director of the department has.
Yeah.
You know, that's an old public sector way to pad a budget.
Yeah.
Well, in this budget, there is overtly hundreds of new positions that we've never seen before on top of all of these positions that have never been filled. And you know what? For what? There's all kinds of things hidden in this. I have no idea, because to tell you the truth, when I left the State House at midnight on Thursday, I hadn't had time to read this, and I didn't read it this weekend either, because on Thursday, what happened was they came in and said, "This is the budget. We're going to pass it." The Republicans, some of them literally pleaded. There were two different issues that they tried. There was a group of Republican representatives that said, "We will make it a bipartisan budget if only you take 2% of that and give it back to the taxpayers in form of tax cuts." So they wanted to lower the taxable amount for the first $24,000. So your income tax would go down for everybody for the first $24,000.
Mm.
They didn't have any part of that. They shut it right down. They just indefinitely postponed that motion. Then Representative Rachel Henderson gave a very impassioned plea for taking out the taxpayer-funded abortion. And they said, look, even though this budget spends money on tons of things we disagree with and we would never support, if you will only not force the taxpayers in Maine to pay to murder babies, she said it much more eloquently than that, then we will give you a bipartisan budget. We want to work with you. We will do that, even though we think it's way too high. Just please don't kill babies with my tax money. Not a peep. They indefinitely postponed or whatever they call it. They took that amendment right off the table. So throughout the night,
was even willing to discuss that with you guys, or was that just completely off the table?
No, they didn't discuss it. They just flat out made a motion and shut that down. Tabled it indefinitely. We're not going to hear that motion on both of those. So then Laurel Libby made her motion to change the license plates to say taxation land instead of vacation land.
Yep.
Yeah, a little tongue in cheek, but the reality is she wanted to draw attention to the fact that
Yep.
we have a budget that's $2 billion higher than the last budget.
Don't forget to subscribe to our Patreon and our Spotify. We need your support today to be able to spread the conservative message and make sure people are aware of what's going on in our culture. Without your support, we can't help get the culture back onto the narrow road.
But the key element of this budget right here is this isn't the whole budget. They claim that this is an operating budget. So every year, by the third Wednesday in June, or every session, I should say, every 2 years, by the third Wednesday in June, the legislature has to come to an agreement and pass a budget with 2/3 majority that will run the state for the next 2 years. The first thing the Democrats did on Thursday was say, we're going to suspend the rules so that we can pass a budget with a simple majority. So no need for 2/3. They just circumvented the Constitution. Now that is there so that as of the third week in June, or the fourth week in June, by July 1st, if there's a stalemate, no one's coming to the table with compromises, then the government can maintain continuity. The legislature can vote and do away with the 2/3, and they can pass a simple majority budget. But we're 3 months away. You know, we were in March. It's April 1st now, but it was March, and we had till the third Wednesday of June, right? 21st of June. They came in and said, no, we don't think that we're going to ever come to a compromise, so we're just going to shut you down. The trick to this is, though, as soon as the budget is adopted, the work of the legislature is done for that session. So as soon as we passed all this Wednesday night, we were adjourned for the rest of the session. We're done. But there's only a third of the bills that are written this year. Some of them haven't even come out of the revisor's office. Probably a third of them haven't. And the third that's already been worked on. But then, so we have 2/3 of the bills that haven't been heard, haven't even had public hearings. A third of them haven't even come out of the revisor's office. So we get this dandy little piece of paper. This is a proclamation from the governor. Now, there's a constitutional provision that if something comes up that is extraordinary, sorry, that was upside down. If there's a true extraordinary situation, then the governor can recall the legislature. She can do that either two ways. One's an emergency or one's just an extraordinary situation. So, you know, if we adjourn in June and then in August a tornado wipes through the state, she can reconvene us as an emergency. Or if they just find out that inflation goes wild and they won't have enough money to have gas in the police cruisers, they can bring us back in and have an extraordinary situation, not an emergency, right? That's my definition of the two different ways we can be recalled. So the excuse for this is, whereas there exists in the state of Maine an extraordinary occasion arising out of the need to resolve many legislative matters pending at the time of the adjournment of the first regular session of the 131st legislature of the state of Maine. And whereas the public health, safety, and welfare requires that the legislature resolve these pending matters as soon as possible, and in any event prior to the date of the second regular session of the 131st legislature, which would be January 1st of 24. of Maine, including but not limited to the state budget, pending legislation, pending nominations of state board and commission members, and pending nomination of judicial official officers by the governor requiring legislative confirmations. Now, therefore, I, Janet T. Mills, governor of the state of Maine, by virtue of the constitutional power vested in me as governor pursuant to Article 5, Part 1, Sections 13 of the Constitution of the state of Maine, do convene the legislature of this state and hereby request the representatives to assemble at 10 o'clock and the Senate to assemble at 10 o'clock in the morning in their respective chambers at the Capitol in Augusta on Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. In order to receive communications, resolve pending legislation, carry over from the first regular session of the 131st legislature, and act upon pending nominations, whatever other business may come before the legislature. So somehow we've come into some extraordinary situation. The only thing extraordinary about this is that they did it in the first place. The state has only done this 5 times. There's only been 3 in modern time, really. The Governor Angus King did this pretty much the same way, and Janet Mills has done it now twice. The other 2 were little different circumstances, but all done by the Democrat Party, all forced through without any Republicans voting for it at all. So on Thursday night, not a single Republican voted for any of this, House or Senate. And that means, 6,000 people plus, or 600,000 people in this state have no representation. We have the largest budget ever made in this state already, without even seeing the second part of it. We're far above any budget that's ever existed, and there's another part coming. The other shoe is going to drop. So, what do I think the results of this is? Well, first off, the economic hardship that people of Maine are going to face because of this is huge.
Yep.
The flood of illegal immigrants that we're going to get is going to be huge as well. I mean, I don't understand why. If I was an illegal immigrant in this country, and one state's offering free health insurance and free housing, and other states aren't, I'm going to the one that's going to give me everything, right? Well, I don't live my life that way, but unfortunately, some people do.
Yeah.
And we're just begging for it. So I think that's going to be a huge repercussion. The other thing that I'm really more concerned about right now in the next several weeks, we have a lot of legislation coming. Monday, there are 4 gun bills, or anti-gun bills, I should say. There's an anti-hunting bill, that wants to put a season on coyote hunting. There's another bill in to end the vaccine mandates and for first responders and such. And now the Democrat Party is emboldened. The governor has nothing to lose. This is her last term in office. She's termed out, and they obviously just don't care. They don't care about you having representation. They don't care about any of the Republicans, what we have to say. So any meaningful negotiation on some of these bills is going to just fall on deaf ears.
Sure.
I will say, I'm going to compliment one Democrat that I disagree with on most things. But Bruce White of Waterville did vote for the amendment for the pro-life part of the pro-life amendment, taking the taxpayer-funded abortion off the table. He also proudly wears his little baby feet pin like several of us do, and he is a pro-life guy.
That's very
Disagree with him on all kinds of other things, but he's a gentleman and he is a advocate for pro-life. So, I want to give him kudos for that. But other than that one vote, and I may have missed one, but I believe that other than that one vote, not a one Democrat swayed on any of that.
Jeez.
And they all voted in lockstep for the budget. Anyway, any other questions?
No, that's a fantastic summary, and I'm really glad we can give the public some more publicity on that. After I watched a bunch of your Facebook Live a day or two ago, you gave some great insight, and it wasn't just a video bashing Democrats, but it was a introduction to how much we're going to be spending, how unrealistic the expectations were, how long this budget was. Now you say it's just an operating budget. Holy mackerel. I mean, they have no sense when it comes to finances. No sense at all. I think it was LePage that said, a businessman can learn to be a politician, but a politician can never learn to be a businessman. It's as simple as that.
Probably so. Well, I'll add to that. The one thing that really, and here's a little Democrat bashing for you, I guess. The thing that really bothers me is that I know that several of the people on the other side of the aisle didn't want to see this go down that way. I truly believe that. I think that some of the people that were working on the Appropriations Committee, even to her benefit, Speaker Rachel Talbot Ross, I don't believe that she wanted to see this go that way. But they all did. But they all did. There was no dissent. They all fell in line when the executive told them what to do. And, that's just the way it is. They without any hesitation, they all come on and just laid it out. And then we got some misinformation, I guess is the polite way to say it. The president of the Senate was on the radio just, from the time the budget was presented to us and the time we voted on it. And he said that, negotiations broke down because all the Republicans wanted to do is give tax breaks to the millionaires. Well, all they were asking for was 2% of the budget to go back to lowering the rate for people under $24,000. What that would result to anybody that's making above 24,000, it would have been 320 or 380. It was under $400 a year.
Yep.
Back to the people. But the Democrats would rather take your money and then mail you a little penance, a little check, and say, here, we really care about you. And then they rename it, instead of here's the excess money you paid in taxes, they say, here's some heating relief. Yeah, we took all your money, but hey, here's a little bit, yeah, take this one extra piece of coal home so Tiny Tim doesn't freeze tonight.
No, 100%. Oh, they think we're stupid.
Right. Well,
No, seriously, I mean it. They think we're stupid. And I'm blessed that we have technology like this at our benefit, because the media hates us. They won't cover this type of stuff. I seriously doubt WABI is going to be calling anybody like you to have you on, because guess what? You're a gosh darn Republican. So we need as much of this as possible. I hope I'm not the only one asking you to come on and have a Zoom meeting and then get it up all over social media so that people can be made aware of Democrat.
Let's see a random page.
What's that?
So let's look, a random page.
Yeah.
Oh, Maine Fire Protection Service Commission. Okay. Let's see. Where do we have this? Health Data Organizations, Maine. 290,000 1 year and 2,090,000 the first year, 120,000 the second year.
What was
And
that for again?
it was for collecting data on Maine Health Data Organization. Half of this stuff is written so ambiguously you can't tell what it's going
I was
to.
going to say, what?
So, and special revenue funds. They label it special revenue funds. Well, the total at the bottom of that is 2,090,000 first year and 2,121,000 second year. So,
and what is that for?
Yeah, exactly. It's
only mildly rhetorical.
There is no way. Maybe people on the appropriations committee would know what 80% of this actually meant.
Yeah.
But in 48 hours, where I had this for about 48 hours before we were forced to vote, there is absolutely no way that a freshman in the legislature, which we have a lot of freshmen this term, could go through this and even come close to understanding. Now, I've worked in county budget. I've worked on budgets. The first elected office I ever served on was an elected budget committee 30 years ago. So, I've been around budgets. I'm not a financial wizard, but I know what budgets look like.
Yeah.
And you just can't hand this out to 160 people and say, there, make a decision. You got 48 hours. 419 pages worth. But I don't know.
Well, thank you so much, Representative White. This has been a blessing, and I'm really glad that the Maine people are going to get a little bit better of a scope of what Democrat leadership actually does, especially in terms of finances. We may still be vacation land in name, but we have officially become taxation land. So
absolutely.
I don't say
one more
that
thing. A lot going on at the State House this week.
Yep.
There's pro-life stuff going on Tuesday. There's a big pro-life rally, big gun rally on Monday. So
yeah,
if you can get stuff out to people, the more the merrier.
100%. We will get as much publicity out there as possible, and we'll be praying. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and also check out Facebook. We're doing a Red County Republicans Daily live stream. It's absolutely fantastic. You're not going to want to miss it. Go check out the Patreon and Spotify as well. A whole ton of content is coming out. Specifically on Patreon, we're exposing the culture. That's what we're calling the series. Whether it's transgender ideologies being pushed in our schools or porn being available for young children in their libraries, a whole myriad of things. We're exposing the culture and making people aware of what's actually going on. So thank you guys so much. Subscribe and have a fantastic day. God bless.
Vacation land to taxation land.